Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Innovation Podcast, your source for all things innovation. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Doug Miller on the line, and he's CEO and CTO over at Brightworks Group. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. I'm very happy to be here.
All right, Doug. So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to talk about cybersecurity and working safely from anywhere. But before we do that, let's give the audience a little bit of a background on the company overall. So Brightworks Group, tell us a little bit more about what you do, please.
Yes, we are a cloud transition, digital transformation, and IT modernization company, which are a lot of buzzwords. But at the end, what we help is small to mid-sized enterprises really modernize their IT plant, bring themselves up to spec with more modern technologies, and put the right things in place from a cloud perspective to address some of their shortfalls on the technology front.
That's awesome. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you some time to leave, websites or social or, wherever you want to direct that traffic, because we're business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives listening that can use your services. But I want to make sure that the right types of individuals and or organizations connect with you. What's typically the right type of fit in terms of company, whether it's size, industry, or otherwise?
Sure. We tend to work with companies that are probably above $2 million in revenue. Somewhere between 50 and about 500 employees. So we have some companies that are larger than that and some that are smaller. Our core expertise is really in manufacturing, financial services, healthcare, and we do a lot in the architecture, engineering, construction management space. We work with companies outside of that. We have a number of larger dental groups that we work with. So it's not like we can't work with anybody, but of the companies that we tend to work with, they tend to be complex in nature. They tend to have more than one location. Often they have some level of compliance that they need to deal with or are highly regulated.
So I think that's a great transition. So let's talk, because a lot of these companies, as more and more individuals are working from home, as that whole transition is taking place, cybersecurity, working from safely from anywhere, it's a big deal for big companies and small companies alike. So where do you want to start with this topic? Because I know you're doing this day in and day out.
Yeah, we certainly are, and it's something that from our inception, almost a decade ago, we've been very focused on. More and more people are working from different places. It's a shift we see in the workplace that's been going on for years. Working from home is part of that, but working mobile, working from hotels, working from conferences, working from the road. There are a lot of places that people work from today. And the challenge there is that many security models for companies have been formed on sort of a moat and castle approach, right? There's a perimeter of security around the on-site company. And if you're inside that perimeter, you're great. But if you're outside that perimeter, you're exposed. And certainly we've seen lots of challenges and problems with companies that have people that are working from hotels and on hotel Wi-Fi probably experienced that yourself, right? You're in your room, you want to get connected to the internet, you've got some work to do, and you connect to the hotel Wi-Fi. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, you don't have the same protections that you would if you were home, or rather if you were at your office, right? So we've unfortunately seen a lot of situations where companies have either ended up having their employees exposed to things like malware and phishing attacks because they're connected over public Wi-Fi. Again, maybe a Starbucks, something like that. And we've seen cases where companies have had information stolen from them, intellectual property, information on employees that set themselves up for later phishing campaigns. So it can be a real problem these days to connect to these non-secure networks. What we focus on is helping employees of these companies, our customer companies, utilize a variety of services and approaches to safeguard themselves, regardless of what device they're working on, and regardless of where they're connecting from. Some of that is technology. Some of it is the approach that companies have to take to security. And finally, some of it is just training. In fact, probably the core of it is doing the right kind of training and awareness raising amongst your staff so they understand what kind of things to watch out for.
So where do you find, and, as companies are, so there's some people listening right now who maybe they're just starting to, latch on to this idea of letting your employees work from other areas, and maybe they just didn't do that in the past, right? And they're little by little finding, for whatever reason, whether it's cost benefit, whether they're shifting focus, whatever they're doing. What do you think are some of the first things that people should consider as they make that transition?
So the first thing I think that you have to consider, and probably the quickest and easiest thing that a company can do, is that it can adopt something known as multi-factor authentication across the board. So for all of your employees that are trying to authenticate to, and sign in, use your passwords, right, to any resource, whether that's, maybe you're using some kind of online email for the company, Office 365 or Gmail, or different applications, Salesforce, some kind of CRM. All of these now have the ability to enable what's known as two-factor authentication. If you do nothing else, this will prevent probably over 90% of the possible attacks that your staff could be subjected to. And it's really very simple. Everybody today has a phone. It's a matter of signing up for the right service, grabbing the authenticator applications. And I want to stress that there are a couple ways to do this. One way is to simply get text messages. We've probably all seen this, right? We try and sign into our online banking, and they want to send us a text message. And that's better than nothing, but the best solution are online authenticator applications. And there are applications like Authy, A-U-T-H-Y, that you can download. Your company can set them up. And the trick to two-factor authentication is that you have one factor, your password, and then you have a second factor, which is a thing that nobody else but you can have. And that's the authenticator app on your phone. When you sign in, you're prompted to put in a code from that authenticator app, and nobody else can have that. It protects you from the vast majority of attacks or problems that you could run into. So simply using that to protect everything is your best and easiest first step. The next thing that I think that you need to do is that you need to invest in some kind of education program. Fortunately, there are a number of really good online, pretty inexpensive education resources out there that your business can sign up for. By having your employees regularly, and I don't mean daily or weekly, but at least quarterly, participate in some kind of cybersecurity training, it keeps it fresh in their mind, and they start to become able to recognize the signs of some of these phishing and other email-based attacks, and it can really stop problems.
No, I love it. And I think that I'm glad you bring this up, because not enough people, in my opinion, talk about the education component of that, because I'll pick on myself here. So like, I'm not thinking about cybersecurity all the time, and I'm not thinking about all these things. So if I wasn't doing an interview like this, then I'm more likely to, because this is my little bit of education for the record, Doug, but I'm more likely to click on that email or to do this,
Sure,
or just to be caught off guard. Even people that like know better do things that they shouldn't do, because it's like it's snuck in. It catches you when you're in the middle of 5 different things, and then you're like, wait, who's this person? Invoice or something like that. Then you click on it and you're like, wait a minute, I don't know that company. Why did I click on that even though it said invoice due? Like, why did I do that? Like, and you're like, oh, they got me.
That's exactly what they're counting on, is that you'll be distracted. You're trying to do your work, right? And now they're getting a lot more sophisticated about it. We're seeing very, very sophisticated phishing emails. We're seeing very sophisticated what are now called vishing, where they're using phone and video conferencing to social engineer people's credentials out of them. So the training piece is better than any technology, right? I mean, there's great technologies out there, don't get me wrong, but people are still much, much more intelligent than anything we can do on the computer side of the house. So don't just rely on technology. Trust your people and train them to do it right. And the cost of doing that training is always less than what you would pay if you did have a problem.
No, well said, and that's always the way it works. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work that you're doing to keep our business owners out there safe and organizations. So that being said, Doug, if somebody's listening to this and they want more information on BrightWorks Group or to connect with you and your team, I mean, what's the best way for them to reach out and do that?
Sure. Well, they can reach out to us via our website, which is brightworksgroup.net. I'm also available, and the company can be reached on LinkedIn. We're BrightWorks Group on LinkedIn and Doug Miller on LinkedIn. Those are our 2 primary online kind of touch points. So feel free. The website's got a lot of information, a lot of content, blog posts, white papers, none of which we charge for. You can check those out. You can download some information, get up to speed on some of the latest things that are going on out there. And we very regularly share lots of content on LinkedIn as well. So please find us on LinkedIn and subscribe to the company page. And there's always at least one fairly significant piece of content that we post a day about this kind of stuff.
Fantastic. Well, Doug, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background, all the great work that you're doing over at BrightWorks Group. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Innovation, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Doug, thanks again for coming on the show.
Adam, thanks very much for having me.